Good morning. Happy New Year. Welcome to this circle that gathers us again and again. We've never been this particular circle before, nor will we ever be this particular circle again. We are this spiritual community in this moment in time with one another because each of us needs to be here today and each of us needs each other to be here today. You have a place in this circle, a unique place, whether you've ever been here before, haven't been here in a long time, or are here from time to time, or are here holding the circle as we come and go week by week with one another. We gather in this ancient configuration, a formation that signifies equality without a hierarchy, where we are fellow searchers journeying together in a circle that's never closed and can always be expanded. We gather in gratitude for this land that is home to so many, this storied land, ancestral land to the Cree peoples of Treaty 6 and the Métis peoples of this land who've made their home here for generations. And so many of us for whom it is our adopted land. As we gather with one another this day, we are in this moment of being between getting here and being here. And so we sing our way into our intention to open to this time in which we are gathered with one another. Above us are the stars. Beneath us, the good ground which gravity holds us. And within us is the light of life. We gather in this season that our tradition has called Epiphany, a season of light, a season of finding light. We gather to nurture all that gives our lives radiance. We gather seeking wisdom in stories and songs, in words and silence. We gather seeking wisdom in our lived experience, wisdom within us and between us and beyond us. And we gather in the presence of light, but also in our quest for more light.
We may have traveled here this morning to strengthen ourselves for the journey of daily life, with all its ups, downs, cycles, patterns, and changes. Let us join together with these words to strengthen our intentions for the path ahead. Sometimes we step cautiously, moving with tentativeness into a deeper unknown. Sometimes we step boldly, moving fearlessly into the moment that calls us. Sometimes we can just put one foot in front of the other, hoping our feet will find a safe landing that our hearts can't know. Each step we take leads us into a moment we have never been in before. May we open to this new day with grace and courage. May we grow anew each day. May we live that it may be so. Okay, it's time for a time for all ages. So I'm looking for some people to join me at the carpet. Whoever feels like coming down, you're going to want to be close. Hello, I'm Allison. Nice to meet you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Hey, put her there. Hi, Lucky Duck. Hello, I'm Allison. Nice to meet you. Hi. So later on today, we're going to hear a story about some wise people that traveled very far to see a new baby. And they brought something special with them. So I was wondering if there's anything that you bring with you that's special when you travel. Maybe you travel to school, or maybe you travel to visit family. Do you bring anything with you that you always bring? When you travel, what do you pack? Nothing. Maybe someone's packing for you. Of course. Wow. Then you open your stuff and you think, where's my favorite, whatever it is? Well, these people, when they traveled, they brought something special, and it says in the story, they opened their treasure chest, and have you heard the story of the 3 wise men going to see baby Jesus? Do you remember what the story says they brought? No? Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. I have brought you gold, frankincense, and wait, there's myrrh. So I have a little treasure chest. Here, can you move a little bit so those people can see? Do you want to open that? Yeah. What's this? Myrrh. So, yeah. So this tree, yeah, you can take it all out.
That's a candle.
Yeah, a candle and some matches. So myrrh is from a really pokey tree. It grows in Africa, the Middle East. Where else does the myrrh tree grow? You don't know. Neither do I. But this myrrh I got just down the street at Family Mart. Yeah. So I wanted to show you this, and we're going to smell it. So myrrh is a resin. Have you heard the word resin? Have you ever climbed a tree where you get that really sticky stuff on you? Yeah. That when it hardens, it's like this. So this is a resin from a tree. So you can get resin around here. And you can make this into an oil, and it has medicinal purposes, so maybe that's why they brought it. They don't know why the wise people brought it to the baby. So maybe medicine reasons, maybe symbolic reasons for a certain meaning, like to show he was a king. But what it's used for now is often an incense, which is like a smelly smoke.
This is an excerpt from the poem Little Gidding, the last poem in T.S. Eliot's 4 quartets, a work that he started writing in 1941 during the bombing of London. And after 5 drafts and more than a year later, in 1942, he finished the poem, a series of poems about time and perspective and about the experience of war and about human nature, and particularly about the unity of the past with the present and the future. He named it for a small Anglican parish in the English countryside, Gidding, a community that was to represent any religious community. We shall not cease from exploration. And the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Through the unknown, unremembered gate, when the last of earth left to discover is that which was the beginning. At the source of the longest river, the voice of the hidden waterfall and the children in the apple tree. Not known because not looked for, but heard, half heard, in the stillness between 2 waves of the sea. Quick now, here, now, always. A condition of complete simplicity costing not less than everything. And all shall be well, and all manner of thing shall be well, when the tongues of flame are enfolded into the crowned knot of fire, and the fire and the rose are one. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. In the thoughts of this poet,
this is one of the stories about the birth of Jesus that has been passed down to us. It's found in the writings to an early Jewish Christian community from late in the 1st century. It's from Matthew 2. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all of Jerusalem with him, and calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet, And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means the least of the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their country by another road. This is one of the birth stories from the Jesus tradition passed down to us in writings from the 1st century.
Without a doubt, those wise guys are my favorite characters in the stories that give us the Christmas tradition. Those exotic ones that are always late getting to the baby. At least that's the way our tradition decided to honor the two very different nativity stories we've been given. We've given the manger scene to the hasty shepherds of Luke's legend, who are the stars of the Christmas festival. And we've held the wise men over for the last act, and we have them arrive at a house, not a stable, sometime after the birth, and we've given Matthew's characters their own festival. We've called it Epiphany, the 12th day of Christmas. Maybe I like them because I'm usually late too. So I know how it feels. Or maybe I like them because they're mysterious and intriguing and not very practical and kind of exotic, and they get the best costumes and they always get to bring the curtain down. Or maybe I like them because they feel a little surplus to the story. They've come a hell of a long way out of their way to be in this story. And they get scripted to make some big-time mistakes. And unlike all the other characters in the story, they don't get to share any scenes with an angel. They just get to share the stage with a deranged and unstable king And they don't even get to stay on stage very long. They get to pause long enough to give up their totally ridiculous gifts, and then they disappear, never to be heard from again. And for some reason, over the years, our carols have turned them into kings. And we've decided there were 3 of them, I guess 1 to match each gift. So everybody'd have a prop to carry. And tradition gave them names and assigned them kingdoms, like Melchior, king of Persia, and Gaspar, king of India, and Balthazar, king of Arabia. And sometimes we gave them camels to ride on. But how did they get to be kings in a story that introduced them to us as sages, wise men, magi? Maybe it was easy for us to make them kings because they brought such exotic and extravagant gifts. The kinds of things you'd give a foreign dignitary who has everything, not something you'd bring to a baby who has nothing. Or maybe we turned them into kings because of their inclination to treat a foreign palace as though it was a tourist bureau. Why not solicit directions from your peer in your search? After all, who are you going to call on if not your counterpart in the other kingdom? But I think the story was right to have scripted them as sages rather than to typecast them as ancient astrologers or exotic kings. And the best gifts they brought in the world of this story are the gifts they have to teach us about wisdom. Maybe especially where wisdom is found in an age of foolishness. The storyteller births their journey in wonder. And isn't wonder the tap root of wisdom? Does anyone grow wiser without being deeply curious? And by definition, isn't curiosity a form of humility? That accepts that there's always more to discover, there's always more we don't know, and there are many, many ways of knowing. I see them as wise because they're open to learn from their intuition. And they're open to learn from their dreams. And they're open to learning from their mistakes and from their connection to the cosmos, to the old, deep ways of knowing. And they must have been open to learning from each other because the story has them stick together through thick and thin, even when things go wrong. And the story has them open to being willing to learn from a tradition that was not their own, to the ancient texts of a faith tradition that they didn't adhere to. They were willing to learn from the sacred texts of ancient Israel and the witness of its interpreters. And also, when the time came, they could leave the experts behind and deepen their own listening to the sky above them and the dreams within them. They could travel beyond the authority of any texts or the interpreters, the experts, and they could integrate their own knowledge and their own wisdom, their own intuition, their own experience. In the world of the story, they were scripted to search beyond the instructions of King Herod, who was scripted to be blinded in a way that limits wisdom, blinded by his fears. The fears that always blind us to other possibilities. They were willing to travel beyond the answers of scribes and scholars who were stuck in an old paradigm, trying to force fit truth into the ruts of their systems, missing that wisdom is distilled from our experience. It's not discerned from a text. And that wisdom emerges in living beyond filtering facts to fit our framework. Somehow, they were also those who gave us this story. They were given to know that wisdom needs to express itself in reverence. A reverence that honors beauty and fragility and vulnerability, that will bow before the fragile face of new life. And they knew that wisdom knows that the shining moments in our journey are not the destination. They're more like scenic lookouts. Places to pause, moments to ponder, time to listen, a time to learn, but the road invariably calls us on. I love that the story lets them be wise enough to resist the lure of becoming the king's informants. That the story doesn't let them get in bed with the emperor. That they don't betray their instincts in order to buddy up to power. And they don't wait around in the story for this child to grow up. They didn't become his followers. They didn't convert to Judaism. They didn't become the first Christians. They kept traveling. And they took a road they'd never been on before. The story tells us they headed for home. Doesn't tell us where that was. Doesn't tell us if they got there. It just told us that was the direction they headed. And we don't really need to know where that road leads. We just need to know that wisdom invites us to travel. And maybe that's why we need the Magi to turn up every year. They teach us how to travel wisely. To resist the urge to find a warm place and just settle in for a long winter's nap. While the story doesn't have much to offer us in terms of tips for shoppers, it has a lot of expertise in the travel department. It reminds us that wisdom is always, always a road trip. And we need each other. The story doesn't have them try to make it on their own. They traveled in community. They got there in the good company of each other. They shared the journey. The writer doesn't have anyone run on ahead or anyone get left behind. The story has them stick together. And the story grounds their journey in a deep connection to the cosmic, as if they knew in their bones they were one with the stars. In the world of the story, they begin their journey in the company of the stars, and it's the stars that eventually lead them to that moment of pause, that moment of reverence. They weren't armchair travelers. They took on the risks of the road without the help of Fodor's or Rick Steves or Lonely Planet. And unlike the king and his cronies, they didn't hunker down in the palace with their sacred texts and wait for word. They were the ones in the story who followed their eternal curiosity. And their wisdom came out of seeing firsthand. These mysterious strangers come to us in the world of our stories every year. to offer us a path to travel that's grounded in wonder. It's not grounded in faith. They invite us to follow the rising star of respect for all that's sacred, even for the journey itself. And to discover new life where we'd never expect to find it. To trust the authority of our instinct. To make something of our experience. And to resist the temptation to trade the road for a room in the house. To be led by our curiosity and open to express our reverence. Maybe they come to us so we can ask ourselves every year, what do we need to learn from these characters? To grow newer and wiser, not just older and wiser. On Wednesday evening this week at 7 o'clock, our Beyond series continues. We're going to hear from one of our colleagues who shares team ministry at Sherwood Park United Church, Reverend Kurt Katzmar. Kurt comes to us from the United Church of Christ in the United States and wants to share with us some of the experiences of that very progressive denomination in the United States, and some of how that has shaped him and who he is and brought him to the place where he is in his journey. So feel welcome to join us on Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock for the next in our Beyond series. Also, we have had the experiences of so many losses in our community and in our lives. And we want to offer an opportunity for us to journey together in our grief. Kathy Powers is agreeing to facilitate a grief group once again that will begin meeting on the 20th of January. It's a Saturday morning from 9:30 to 11:30. The group will meet every week for 4 weeks, and then we'll begin to meet bi-weekly and continue into the month of April. So if this is something that would be helpful for you, if you are living with loss, it might be a recent loss or it might be a distant loss, and want an opportunity to explore and find support and do some learning about that grieving journey, there's an opportunity to gather, and we would invite you to register by either contacting Kathy, her number you'll find in the electronic messenger that went out on Friday, or contacting the church office. So we welcome you to participate in that program. That is a wonderful offering and a great opportunity for us to share a very universal experience that we all have in very particular ways with one another. This Friday we will gather to honor the life of Charles Hickman. Friday. We gather at this spacious table not to speak any magic words or invoke any supernatural power, but to call ourselves into the collective energy of being a spiritual community that supports and encourages each other, that persists in seeking justice, in loving kindness, in walking humbly on this good and generous earth. And if we don't give up, transformation can happen.
We share a bit of bread, knowing its journey from seed to grain, from field to mill, a journey of persistence in the midst of sun and rain to satisfy our hunger. Sharing bread, we remember if we don't give up,
transformation can happen. We share grapes that are grown and crushed from vine to vat, a journey of persistence in sun and rain to satisfy our thirst. Sharing grape juice, we remember that if we don't give up,
we find wisdom in stories in our tradition. Those who share bread and hope with one another in the midst of their fears, those who found courage to persist in cruel and difficult times. Seeking wisdom in many places, we remember if we don't give up,
transformation can happen. So we invite one another to this table, not because of what we believe or don't believe, not because we're a member of this or any spiritual community. We are invited to this table as a way of expressing and strengthening our collective intentions to not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief, but to persist in doing justice and loving kindness and walking humbly together, knowing that if we don't give up,
transformation can happen.
So we share this bread as the bread of persistence, and we share this cup as the cup of community to remind us that we're not alone, we are in this together. And this is an opportunity, however we choose to take it, by coming to the table or by taking time of reflection in this circle, to think about our persistence and our collective energy with one another. What could teach us more about persistence than a flame? If it ceases to be fire, it becomes smoke. It persists in its presence, in its way of being, just transformed to a new way of being. We travel with one another, with hope and with perseverance. We go together to travel wisely.
Hey, it's Christopher. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to watch last week's video, click this button right here. If you can manage it and can donate to SSUC to help us continue this video page, click right here. And for any information that you want about SSUC and our programs, visit our website right there.